Welcome to Critical Thinking. My name is Jessica Thompson, and I'm your instructor for this course. So let's dive right in. So what is critical thinking and why do we need it? So officially, right, critical thinking's thinking about thinking, reflecting on your processes of thought and evaluating them. Right? Critical thinking involves the proper evaluation of reasoning, argument, and persuasion by others. And the goal of this course is to make us better reasoners. And by the way, this is a lifelong process. No one course can teach you everything there is to know about critical thinking skills, but hopefully we can get a good start here. And if you already have gotten a good start elsewhere, then maybe this course will just help you refine that process a bit. So this means that critical thinking entails two main objectives. First, to make you better at persuading others using logic, and also to make you better at being persuaded only when you logically ought to be. They're equally important. But why? Well, because of belief. Right? To persuade someone is to influence their beliefs, and to believe something is to think it's true, right? So our beliefs guide our behavior, and this is pretty obvious. For instance, if I believe that my friend is conspiring against me, I might do the same in return or terminate the friendship based upon my belief that that is true, that this friend is indeed trying to conspire against me, right? If I believe that someone's trying to break into my house, I might call 911 or go for a weapon. If I believe that person X is the best candidate for political office, I'll be inclined to vote for person X. So, in other words, our behaviors have real world consequences, and they affect the lives of other people, and sometimes dramatically, and our behaviors stem from our beliefs. So it's critical that we pay attention to the way that we form beliefs. Let's take a look at some of the common causes of belief. What makes you believe the things that you believe? Right? Well, first, upbringing. People tend to believe what their parents believe, and especially in the cases of politics and religion, right? Repetition. People tend to believe messages that are repeated over and over again. That's why you see this often in advertising. Emotion. People tend to believe things that accord with their emotions, such as love and hate, faith, trust, senses of personal identity and group identity. These factors move us, and they heavily influence what we believe. And evidence. Any consideration which makes that belief more likely to be true, or any consideration that supports that belief. So in contrast with the last item, in contrast with evidence, the others have one glaring feature in common. They are epistemically unreliable. So epistemology is the philosophical study of knowledge. So epistemically means having to do with knowledge. So to recap, upbringing, epistemically unreliable. Repetition, epistemically unreliable. Emotion, epistemically unreliable. Evidence, particularly good, relevant, and sufficient evidence, epistemically reliable. Let's take a look at unreliability for a second. So, why is upbringing an epistemically unreliable cause of belief? Well, suppose you hold the political views that you do entirely because your parents raised you to believe as they did. Clearly, had you been raised by different parents, you'd have very different political views then. I mean, you might as well decide your political views by rolling the dice. In other words, just because your parents believe something to be true doesn't by itself make it more likely to be true. Repetition is an epistemically unreliable cause of belief. Just saying something over and over doesn't make it more likely to be true. But like I said earlier, in the case of advertising, you'd think that that was the case. I don't know why simple repetition works so well on us, but it does. Emotion. epistemically unreliable cause of belief. Our emotional reactions are determined by many factors other than the truth, many of which we scarcely understand. Right? Now, let's look at reliability. Because our beliefs are often caused or at least influenced by illicit factors, the upbringing, repetition, emotion, we need to be wary about why we hold a given belief. And people believe nearly all of what they believe for the same reason, because it seems true to them. Right? But the problem is that this truthiness, or this seeming true to them, accompanies pretty much all belief, whether the belief is in fact true or not. Anything you believe, it's going to have that quality. It's going to seem true to you. Right? So of all the causes of belief, the only epistemically proper cause of belief is evidence. Truthiness is not evidence. I wanted to briefly mention reasoning and the dual systems theory of mind and brain. Right? So some psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists divide reasoning and theories of mind and brain into two separate processors, right? So there's the intuitive processor, system one, that operates quickly, automatically, unconsciously. The kinds of problems that it solves are generally either evolutionarily old problems or newer problems that the individual has a great deal of practice with. The answers come immediately and without deliberation, right? Just bam. So we're going to refer to that process as intuition. And then there's system two, the conscious rule interpreter. This one operates slowly, deliberately, and with effort. Is able to solve a wide variety of new and unanticipated problems. It's not, these sorts of problems aren't hardwired into us, and we don't get a quick answer like we would with the intuitive processor. When you're using it, you know what steps you're going through to solve the problem at hand. We're going to refer to this process as reasoning. Reasoning, evidence, and arguments. So reasoning is the conscious, deliberate articulation and assessment of evidence. It's a mental process that happens inside of your head. An argument is a set of statements known as propositions consisting of one or more premises and a conclusion. The premises are propositions that are offered as evidence for the conclusion, and the conclusion is a proposition whose truth the argument is intended to establish. Arguments and reasoning are the two main things this course will focus on. So the presentation of evidence or arguments and the evaluation of the evidence thus presented. Reasoning. And here's a quick layout of our course. So first we're going to dive into the basics, right? Arguments, premises, conclusions. How to put an argument into what's known as standard form, which sets it up so that it can be properly evaluated down the line. Distinguishing arguments from other sorts of passages that could sound as if they're trying to convince you of something, but they really aren't arguments at all. Deduction and induction, the two main types of reasoning that we use to make sense of the world and the way that we classify arguments as well. Evaluating deductive and inductive arguments. How do you tell whether they're any good? What are the standards of evaluation? Then we're going to take a closer look at deductive arguments alone. Then we're going to take a closer look at inductive arguments. Then we're going to take a look at common informal fallacies. Many of you may be familiar with these from some English class, right, where they dive into that just a bit, but we're going to take a good look at it. Right? And also, to conclude, a note on the examples we're going to use in this course. Many of these examples may seem artificial, like textbook examples. And that's a necessary evil of most critical thinking and logic courses. You know, examples are designed to demonstrate particular concepts with as much specificity and clarity as possible. They're not designed to mimic the everyday world. They're designed to be clear-cut examples of where the reasoning and how the reasoning is going wrong, right? But rest assured, every concept you're going to learn in this class can be applied to your everyday thinking. It's just up to you to bridge that gap. I'm going to do the best I can to provide relevant real-world examples for you, right? But keep this in mind as we progress through the course. And if you find yourself reading a textbook sort of example, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, nobody speaks like this seems so artificial, that's to make the concept light up and be as clear as possible. And then we'll try to bridge the gap between textbook example and how these play out in the real world, or, you know, these issues in the wild, if you will.